Ronald Attard. I'm the managing partner at UI, and Simon has kindly asked me to moderate this session. So a few interesting points. And my first question, I'm an accountant, by the way. Should an accountant like me start getting worried with, Abdalla mentioned robotics. You were mentioning artificial intelligence. Will computers take over from people like us?
Well, I think eventually they will. But you shouldn't be worried, because by the time AI can do everything a human can, then we'll simply not work and stay at home sipping cocktails, eating breakfast in bed, and sipping cocktails on the terrace. So eventually it will happen. AI is becoming better every 5 years. So in motor control, it's very good now. They can drive cars, they can land planes. In game playing, now we have AI that can beat the best grandmasters at chess and in Go. And Go is a notoriously difficult problem. When I was an undergraduate, I was told by my professors that they will never write an algorithm to solve Go, to play Go properly, which is a Japanese board game, but it's quite complex. But now it can do it. We are still very far away from having AI that can do everything that humans can. I think there's a decade or two. I think that eventually it will happen, though.
Okay. Abdalla?
I fully agree with John's point. One of the main problems with AI is that we've often and always focused on problems that are very difficult for humans to solve, such as playing chess or beating a human at Go. But all of these are still narrow forms of intelligence. What is extremely difficult to mimic from a behavior perspective is the wider form of intelligence, things that we do in our everyday life without even having to think about them. It is extremely difficult to design an AI that could go to a kitchen that it's never seen before and prepare a cup of tea, for example, whilst now it's becoming extremely easy to beat a human grandmaster at chess. So it's these wide problems. If we look at intelligence as a definition, Jean Piaget, since early 19th century, said that intelligence is what is doing the right thing at the right time, when neither learning nor innateness has prepared us for a situation. So when it comes to tasks, unfortunately, such as accounting, sometimes where we know that the task is predefined and we know the end outcome that we want to achieve, yes, AI will find it very easy to overtake that eventually. But with much wider form of intelligent behavior, we're still far away from that, but we are eventually getting there.
Well, it'd be no fun if we all agreed. So I've got some good news and bad news for you. We use Crunch Accounting in the UK, and it is a highly automated accounting system, and they would typically have a 9-to-1 difference in people, where 9 of their traditional accountants are being replaced by the automated platform that they're using. The good news in all of this, and the good news in AI, is that there's only one thing better than a good AI system. It is the collaboration of a human and a good AI system. All the leading hedge funds and trading companies, many of them have relied on trading algorithms without really understanding what was going on. It was a black box of magic. Mm-hmm. And when unexpected things happen, like the crisis Brexit, suddenly they're losing a huge amount of money. The best systems out there are good collaboration between the tools, techniques, and that can be just good automation systems, then good visualization back to the actual humans that are making the decisions, because ultimately they're responsible from a legal accounting perspective, and also they can actually spot the things that are not programmed, the unexpected events, and provide the context for that.
Okay, so you all seem to agree at some stage.
But no, you're screwed.
Basically.
I'll be dead by then, no? Okay. Sorry, John, did you want to say something else?
Well, today you can get tools that read bank statements and create journal entries automatically for a ledger. Okay. So you already have those.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything which holds up? So the tools seem to be there. What is holding up sort of, and you mentioned, but it might take decades until sort of it does sort of gets more prolific. What is actually holding sort of this progress, if we can call it progress? So,
well, my personal view is that it's a culture problem. It's not budget. It's a culture thing, that people are afraid of change.
Okay.
Of course, in some areas, it's very prevalent. For instance, people remember when the Fiat Ritmo was introduced the first time. It was built by robots. I remember everybody put a sticker at the back of their Ritmo, built by robots and driven by a moron.
Right.
Remember that? Okay, so in manufacturing, they're very highly automated now. They're very highly robotized. In some areas, in healthcare too, in some areas like law, for instance, I found that it's a very conservative area. It takes long for them to grasp and to understand what AI really does. But I think it's only a matter of time.
Okay.
So I don't know why you think this, how long this will take. If you look around you, the rate of transformation we have has been phenomenal. When most people here start off, your parents or even us listen to record players. And in our lifetime, we've gone from record players to cassettes to CDs to some hybrid DVD thing. So now it's all this MP3s, and now it's all disappeared and it's streaming. And in the rate of transformation, this is just the exponential curve that is now going to accelerate off into the future. So all those systems are available. There is some cultural, personal resistance to it, but those who are resisting it, as we see, are being disrupted or taken out by those who are adopting those systems. We have a fundamental challenge. How do we deal with the world in the future where there is so much automation, there is so much, we're going to live in an age of abundance, but the only abundance of we won't have is things like jobs or personal purpose, because most of these things can be done.
Okay.
Another limitation is also both ethical and regulatory. For example, if we look at the use of AI in healthcare, a big problem that we're facing at the moment is the issue of liability. If the AI system misdiagnoses someone, who is to blame? There is no doctor to blame. It was the machine that has diagnosed, or even there are now surgical AIs now that are able to operate. If something goes wrong, who is to blame? And also from a regulatory perspective, I mean, we're quite recently we had the issue of the flash crash, and or the one caused by the Flash boys who were running high-frequency algorithmic trading systems powered by AI, and then they lost around 1.5 billion in just a few seconds, and it was all because their Java virtual machine took few more seconds to load than it should have loaded, so all the trades were placed quite late. So who is to blame? Is it the designers or the machine or the hedge fund itself? So that is why there is this element of reluctance from adopting these technologies, because it's also a liability issue, and in other industries such as healthcare, it's also an ethical issue as well.
Okay, so you seem to indicate accounting profession and legal profession really open to change. Healthcare seems to be protected through some ethical considerations. Moving forward, which industries would you see as sort of being more susceptible to change or more penetration in terms of robotics, artificial intelligence, and the
Well,
like?
it's clear from the trend that manufacturing has become now highly automated.
Right.
This is like when there were supermarkets and grocers, right? They said the supermarkets want to kill the grocers. It was progress, it had to happen. The same thing happened in manufacturing. But they are still very big employers, okay? Only now they can do things much more efficiently. Now, it's now moving to other areas. So I know that there are some futures trading exchanges like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. 80% of all the trades are done by AI algorithms. Of course, like Abdalla said, you cannot leave them on their own all the time, because if they were not designed properly, then you might get market conditions for which they don't recognize, and then they'll do a big mess. And I've heard some horror stories of people losing hundreds of millions of dollars in a few minutes.
True. Yeah.
And the funny thing about it, there's also bigger horror stories from humans losing much more money than
Yes,
the
are they
AI.
on fire?
Yeah.
So,
So we should keep that balance fair between computers and humans.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would turn your question for the people here that instead of worrying about disruption, what you have is a unique opportunity that everybody out here has got a much lower bar. You do not need the massive millions of pounds to create a capital infrastructure to build your factory. That there are so many opportunities for people to hear, to take a good idea, to collaborate with other platforms, other tools, other services. They can fire off a 3D model to China and have a prototype sent back. With the 3D printing, with the democratization of capital, that people here can prototype concepts on the fly, go to customers, do customization. We've got a lovely lady here doing customized shoes. that we're into the age now of tailorization for the millennials who desperately want that sort of unique service. So whilst those that don't adopt that may be disrupted, I think many of them will, there is a unique opportunity in our time for many people here to actually leap into that space and create those new platforms and frameworks for it.
Yeah. Now, there's the positive side, but won't jobs be lost in the process? You're talking about manufacturing, perhaps even accountants, lawyers. Won't jobs be lost in the process?
It's a good question. From my perspective, we will see an evolution. So there will be, and the worry is how long will it take to evolve? Will the jobs be lost faster than we evolve into the new model, new paradigm? Because ultimately, the machines don't buy produce. So we'll be cutting our own throats if we just let the machines create everything. We are going through almost the same change as the Industrial Revolution, where people were thrown off the land and into the factories. Yeah. That was also seen with the same doomsday scenario. But that, look at us now, that evolved, and despite the global troubles, everybody's down to 9% of the economy unemployed. Whether that means a job is watching a virtual reality headset or something in the future, I don't know, but it is. But I do think we have the imagination and wit, and we have this constant desire for new things, and desire for people to fill those needs, that people will do it. And events like this are great to allow people to get on that train and start dealing with that challenge that will come if we don't deal with it.
I agree on this point. I believe that what's going to happen it's in the job for jobs is a transformation rather than a massive job loss. Because if we take again the healthcare industry as an example, and with the evolution of all these AI systems that help us with diagnosing diseases, the role of the doctor will not become as prominent as it is now in terms of diagnosis, but the doctor might focus more on the human face-to-face interaction, which might lead to a world where the job of a nurse is actually much more important than the job of a doctor, because they handle that face-to-face interaction. And so on many other industries. As long as we look at the AI as a decision support tool, or sometimes even a decision-making tool, the humans will always have a role to fulfill in order to steer the interactions on a human-to-human level.
I mean, Richard made the point on the Industrial Revolution, but at the time, it's good sort of 200 years later to say, or 150 years later to say, it was all good, all for the better, and so on. But people suffered in the meantime. Now, yes, perhaps going in terms of sort of what will happen in the next few years. Could the divide between the rich and the poor, or the talented and the untalented?
Lucky we've got very good politicians that are thinking on our behalf, isn't it? Well, I think that's the other opportunity. You're seeing with some of these social movements that we can actually take a lot more of that in our own hands. That is another disruption, which we haven't talked about, but we are looking at the disruption of traditional governments as we know it as well.
Fair point. Sorry.
Okay. Well, yes. I believe that what will happen is that people come up with new roles. This is just like the UK used to do a lot of manufacturing. When I was a kid, if you bought a car or a fridge or a fan or TV, it probably would be made in England. Not anymore, because they moved from manufacturing to services. There was a dot-com boom and financial services, etc. So if it happens gradually, then people have time to react. Universities have time to introduce new curricula for new strings. Okay, and things which we currently do now are done in an automated way by robots and AI, and we move on to do something else.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay. Sorry, Abdalla,
one last point. Finally, and speaking of the divide, and without sounding too much like futurist, I mean, we moved from mainframe computers to laptops, to PDAs, to smartphones, to Google Glass. It's just a matter of time until we actually get chipped. And chip will be inside, and you'll be able to do things such as accessing the internet cognitively. And that will actually going to be what's going to create the divide, because we'll have two types of people, the chipped and the non-chipped. Obviously, the richer are going to be the ones that are going to afford to have such technologies in them. Then we have, speaking of genetic algorithms and natural selections, two types, the chipped and non-chipped. Natural selection, and that might actually cause bigger problems in the future. But we'll leave it for the future generations to think about.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I guess we could keep on, but we're pressed for time. Thank you.
Thank you.